Alright guys, this is a long plane review for OutRun Europa on the Amstrad CPC, released by US Gold in 1991. It's not actually based on an arcade game, it's not a conversion, and you won't find a coin op for OutRun Europa. US Gold had the license for OutRun on the home computers and went ahead with their own game, with permission from Sega, of course. Now this was developed by Probe Software and published, of course, by US Gold for the Amiga, along with the Amstrad CPC and Atari ST, Commodore 64, Game Gear, Sega Master System and ZX Spectrum. And quite a nice title screen here. First problem with this game is the music. From this point onwards it sort of goes a bit wrong. So there's quite a few bum notes there and a bit discordant. Now I'm not sure if this is a problem with the emulated version of the game, which I'm obviously using, whether the music sounds exactly the same on the actual proper disc on the Amstrad, I do not know. Programmed by Von Daslin, graphics artist Mark Knowles, and music by Chrysalis Software. More on them later. But we're going to start the game up. The story goes, you play as a spy called Simeon Kurtz, who's not only had his Ferrari F40 nicked by thieves, but also some top secret documents. So he's nicked a motorbike here in London, and you chase off after them throughout Europe. First on the motorbike here, then we got a jet ski, then a Porsche 911, a speedboat, and then finally his Ferrari F40. And here we are. Okay, very colourful game, very fast, at the expense of the frame rate and some rather blocky graphics. Using a turbo there. I'm picking up some ammo. Avoiding the red cars, they're just like normal drivers on the road, but the motorbikes are part of the gang of thieves out to stop us. And yeah, it's quite difficult to control. It's bizarre physics. You sort of really fly across the road. Certainly if you've ever driven a motorbike before or drive a car, it won't feel like real driving. This is purely arcadey kind of fun, not a realistic simulator of driving on a bike or a car, in a car. Now using the turbos there's plenty to pick up there. The turbos are the orange barrels and the bullets in the road are your ammo pickups. You'll be able to use the ammo in later levels, like the jet ski and the speedboat. Now in the Master System version, in which the graphics for this are ripped from, more on that later, you can actually punch on your bike, road rash style, other bikers. And later levels in the Master System version, you can actually shoot a gun from your car. You pop out the window, like in Chase HQ's Special Criminal Investigations. Oh, and at the end of the Master System version, it has its own Chase HQ style battle against the enemy car. And speaking of Chase HQ, the rather rushed specky version, again more on that later, cheekily ripped off the ending screen from Ocean's Chase HQ, unless I'm watching a pirated version on YouTube. Perhaps a ZX Spectrum fan on this channel can tell me more about that. But back to the game, controls are awkward to get used to. Like I said, it's controlling yourself on bends and moving across the road. It's very weird. It's hard to describe. and I've come across some very strange physics in driving games on the Amstrad and 8-bit computers. It's strange how they all seem to differ. I think Chase HQ got it spot on with the driving, as did WEC Le Mans and other games. But then there was some very strange physics in games like Crazy Cars 2, which I've been playing recently actually on my GX4000. It too has you being chased by cops and has that lovely, I think it's called the Doppler sound effect, with the police siren starting in the distance, quite quiet, and building up in volume as you get closer, and then fading away again as you move away from the cops. I'm sure we'll see that again very soon, because there's plenty of cops on the road in this game. And Crazy Cars 2 has an even weirder sort of physics system, and I think that's probably a game I'll be looking at soon, reviewing and completing. But it's still strangely fun. It's annoying when you get hit by other obstacles, cars, or things at the side of the road, and you lose your speed. However, more often than not, you kind of bounce off like things at the side of the road, unless you really smash completely into them. Yeah, there's the police siren and the Doppler effect in action. I think it's called the Doppler effect. I'm going to sound really stupid if I'm wrong about that. But if you're first to smash into an opponent bike like that, you won't lose any speed. Notice my speed stayed constant there. But if he goes into you first, you lose about half your speed. So yes, keeping the speed constant there. Now you've got a radar in the bottom middle of the status bar. It's only slightly handy. First of all, you're going too fast to really concentrate on two different sort of windows really. But if you're going up a hill and you're about to come over it, the radar might be useful to sort of see where a vehicle might be approaching. But often it's hard to tell because the dot appears in the centre of the screen, usually just off to a side somewhere, so you can pretty much tell where there may be, what side of the road they may be on to avoid them. But generally you kind of pelt along in this game at full speed at pretty much all times, even round bends and stuff like that. And like I said, the physics ain't really brilliant. Just bounced off the White Cliffs of Dover there. There's a very tight time limit, but there's plenty of turbos to pick up. Just watch out for the time limit on the Jetski and Powerboat levels, because you do not have a turbo you can use. Oh, it's exploded there. Nice fireball effect. And actually quite good sound effects actually. There we go, did it with about 3 seconds to spare. So the story moves on, which is pretty ridiculous. So yes, we're jumping on a jet ski, so we're stealing that. And lots to talk about actually in this game. I'll let the jet ski level start first, and I'm going to go through some stuff coming up. But it's nice there's variation in the game. Now we're on water, on a different vehicle. Obviously OutRun, the original OutRun, you were in, and Turbo OutRun, you were in your Ferrari F40 throughout the game. And here we actually got some ammo and rockets that we're shooting up at a helicopter. Quite difficult to destroy, actually, work out how to do it. The way to destroy the helicopters is to hold down the fire button for as long as possible. And then it will shoot the rocket for you, and you want to sort of hit it on the side as it's moving towards you. Quite strange. Okay, what I'm going to talk about quickly now is there are big problems in this game. There's certainly some mistakes in the programming and a horrendous bug later on. Now, when we come to the speedboat level, there's a stage in it with a time limit that is absolutely impossible to beat. I've done that stage perfectly without losing any speed whatsoever, and I still run out of time. So I've had to do some clever work to get past that by sort of hacking the game, really. And also later in the game, you'll find in the video that the game crashes before loading the final stage. So I've had to use a different dump of the game, which is a cracked version of the game, where you can choose which has a level select. So this isn't... Can you call this a true long play? Well, not really, because it's been edited to look like a long play. Only in 2 places though. But we shall come up to that later. What I like here in this level actually is as you get closer to your destination, the horizon changes, and now we can see a bit of green land. And I like that touch actually, very nice touch. And I think it will change again before the end as well. Those orange rocks are really annoying because you don't know which way they're going to sort of be approaching you, whether to go left or right. Oh yes, we can see a bit of the, I think it's the beach, or maybe a cliff. Now, apologies if this review isn't up to my usual standards. I am very tired. I've been up all day. It's nearly 2 in the morning. I've had a glass of red wine, but I'm determined to get this video finished because it's been in the works for a very long time, and it's about time I had another Amstrad long play on my channel. Okay, right, on to stage 3, and yay, we're in a Porsche, sorry. Porsche 911, I believe, a white one. But it looks more like a Porsche 944 from the back of it, if I'm being nerdy. Anywho, yes, so we're back on land. We're racing through France. Now, the graphics here, it's quite interesting. It's the Master System graphics. If you have a look at the Master System version on YouTube, you'll notice a striking similarity. And yes, the Amstrad graphics have been ripped from the Master System version. Do they suffer for that? Not really. The Master System graphics were also quite blocky actually, and played at a similar pace. I don't know if it's the same programmer doing both versions or not. Oh look, there's a little bug there. The turbo pickup got sort of stuck in the road there. But yeah, you can see like the side graphics are sort of, if you look very carefully, they're done in sort of tiles and squares. And you can see sometimes a square outline around them. Yeah, if you look carefully at the bushes, for example, which have a curve on the corners, you can see sort of a dark green square around it. I think this is done to, obviously it doesn't look very nice, but there's a reason behind that. There's usually always a reason behind certain things in games, and why they perhaps don't look as well as they should have done. Using tiles means you can do really sort of fast scrolling and scaling as well. You have one tile per section of a tree or a bush or a house, which can be expanded as you move through into the screen. This allows for very fast scrolling, and this is certainly one of the one of the fastest driving games I've played on the Amstrad, and quite a clever programming technique really. Do you let the graphics suffer for the sake of gameplay? Sometimes yes, and we've actually got, the graphics are nice and colourful enough as it is, so I can live with that. But there's quite a bit of controversy over the ZX Spectrum version and its graphics. Wow. First of all, the story goes, if I'm correct, it was a year or two I read about this. Your Sinclair magazine at the time, I think in probably the late 80s, about 2 years before this game actually got released, maybe 3 years, reviewed the game, or previewed the game, with the Spectrum version having like these amazing full colour graphics. Well, it actually looked better than the Amstrad version and more colourful. It turned out it was a mock-up and completely faked. And also, US Gold cheekily used those graphics on the back of the OutRun Europa box. I think they later changed it, as you saw at the start of the video, if you want to rewind, showed you the back of the box on the Amstrad version. It just has the Amiga and Commodore 64 screenshots, but I've seen pictures of a different back of the box which has Spectrum and Amstrad and Commodore graphics on. And the Spectrum graphics look amazing, and it's not the first time US Gold have done that. They are scumbags, they really are, for doing this kind of stuff. I remember the eSWAT graphics on the back of the Amstrad box looking completely different, and it looks like a mock-up done from the Atari ST version. I think I talked about that in my eSWAT long play. God, I hate US Gold sometimes. They did occasionally have some good games, but they were shysters and crooks. I can't believe they got away with it, actually. I don't think they would do in this day and age. I think Trading Standards would have would be very interested. But there is a project underway to colourize the Spectrum version. Spectrum version ended up with monochrome graphics. It too had its graphics ripped from the Master System version and looked fairly similar to the Amstrad one because, well, they're both from the Master System. However, the Amstrad version was developed first by Darren White, more on him later actually, and then the Spectrum version was done last, which makes a change because the CPC version is normally the last in line to be done. Well, when they got the graphics put into the game from the Master System version and added colour and used the colours, it's awful colour clash. It was just unplayable. But it was found actually that those colourful graphics are in the game. They're just turned off, and you can turn them on using a poke. And the monochrome graphics look pretty awful actually, but certainly better than the colorized version. So if anyone wants the poke for the Spectrum version, I'm sure I can send you the link to it. Just one poke to use and it turns the colours on. Looks crap, but there is a project underway, I think led by Swaney, who's on YouTube and various places online, who's colorising the graphics himself, and they're looking really smart. Not as colourful as the Amstrad version, of course, eh? But good work nonetheless. Now, talking to the programmer Darren White, aka Von Daslin, you may recognise that name. He did the awesome Turrican conversion to the Amstrad. And listen out for the sound effects when you pick up turbos and bullets and ammo on this game. They're the same sound effects used as the pickups in Turrican. But anyway, Von Daslin, he started off with programming the very famous Oh Mummy game. Moved on to do Roland in Time and Roland in Space for Amsoft. I remember I looked at one of them very recently in my channel. And alongside Turrican, his later releases, the big ones I suppose were Back to the Future Part 2, although he was part of a big programming team on that one, and we won't talk too much about that game, and the excellent Spherical as well for US Gold. But Darren White, very, very good programmer. Unless the internet lies, I believe he is still well in the games industry. I think working as a senior programmer at Sony, and has done quite a lot of games. Graphics by Mark Knowles. I don't know why particularly he's got a credit, because they were ripped from the Master System version. Presumably he's the graphics artist for the Master System, and he got a credit. Yeah. Regarding the other versions of this game, I've not really played or seen the Amiga version. It looks okay. I think it was pretty poor by Amiga standards. But there's some amazing presentation on the Commodore 64 version, I have to say, which I think was the first platform OutRun Europa was being developed on. I think it was called OutRun Europe, and it started work 3 years earlier in 1988, but was shelved and put aside for the Turbo OutRun conversion, and then later resurrected. Interestingly, the Commodore 64 version has an extra level set at night after you catch the thieves, where you've got to race back and get the documents home in time. Oh, just about squeeze that then. 0 seconds left. A couple more things to mention about this game. Do not get stopped by the police. If they get in front of you and you are directly behind them for too long in one place, you get arrested, and that's game over. You do get free credits though, and using a credit starts you back at the beginning of the stage. But you can crash as much times as you want, but the other killer in the game is the time limit. And it gets quite tight, especially on the later levels, but there's plenty of turbo pickups and you want to use them as much as possible, really. I've got a full complement there. I really should be using one, and perhaps I haven't noticed I've got a full turbo complement. Maybe I'm thinking I need to save them. I don't. Yeah, I think they do carry over to the next level. I think I'm doing quite well here about the turbo. The turbo only actually seems to speed you up a little bit, actually. It doesn't seem to like fly you through the game like the turbos did on Chase HQ, for example. But Chase HQ did run a little bit slower, to be fair. But I tend to save the turbos for overtaking the police, as you may have witnessed in the Longplay. And then using loads towards the end of the game when the time limit gets tight. Yeah, did you hear that pickup sound effect when I picked up those items? There it is. Exactly the same sound effect used in Turrican. But nice sound effects in this game, actually, generally, as I've already mentioned. There's 7 stages in total. We're probably around the halfway point here, roughly. That's where the radar becomes useful when you're going up a hill. And aside from the niggles in the game, I actually quite enjoyed this, even though it can get really frustrating when you're sort of bouncing off those cars all the time, crashing and bouncing off the scenery, especially when it all goes to pot and you just seem to be stuck bouncing off things. Yeah, and sometimes the cops can catch you really cheaply, which can be really annoying, because that's just basically, that's the end. It's game over, and hopefully you've got a credit left. Oh, of course, yes, the road forks in two directions, a la the original OutRun. It's handled okay programming wise. Wasn't the smoothest transition. Oh yeah, you can ram the cops off the road and blow them up if you're really naughty. Yeah, you really don't want to be using turbos on a bend, especially to get around police, but needs must. Yeah, you got the drop on me there initially and knocked a lot of speed off me. Now I mentioned the Chase HQ one or two times in this video, and I mentioned the Specky version, of course. Yeah, I think I've already mentioned this earlier in the review, that the Specky version, the ending uses the Chase HQ ending. Please, someone tell me I watched a video of a pirated version where someone's added it in because the ending was missing or something. Anyway, right, onto the Powerboat level. Oh my god. Right, you start with 48 seconds. Strangely, you get 48 seconds at the start of the Master System version of this stage. Now, watch what I'm doing here. Watch my speed in the top left corner. I am doing this level without making a single mistake, i.e. losing any speed whatsoever. Now, there's 3 parts to this stage, 3 levels. Now, I managed to get through this first level, and you'll see the timer basically on 0 seconds. And then there's literally no time on the second level of the stage to get through it. You can't use turbos. There's no turbo on the speedboat, and you don't get sort of bonus time for doing stuff like blowing up the helicopter, for example. I've tried that, or getting better times and speeds on the previous levels. No, the time limit is the same on every level and stage. So there we go, we're calling it to 15 seconds. See, I've lost no speed at all so far, and boy was this tough doing the stage without making a mistake. 9, 8. Actually, the seconds count down rather slowly, actually. Right, here we are. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. Did it just on 0 seconds. And there we go. We're starting on 43 seconds. And again, I'm doing this level without making a mistake, without slowing down once. You keep an eye on my speed in the top left corner. Yeah, it varies between 199 and 200. That's just happens because you're bouncing off the waves. Yeah, it turns out I think you need an extra 10 seconds just to get to the end of this level and scrape it. Right. And this is really tough to do without losing any speed. Again, those bloody orange rocks, you never know which way they're going to go. Especially the ones that come in towards the centre of the screen. Are they going to move to the left or to the right? Hard to tell. Right, 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Out of time. Impossible. Right. I'm going to give some credit shortly, but there is a poke we found, and here it is. If you're using WinApe, here's the level. I took a snapshot just before the time ran out, and if you want to go to FE66 and change the value there to something. I'll put 25 there. The address FE66. Now watch the time change when we come out of WinApe. 37 seconds. We can now do this level. So we're going to pick things up from that snapshot and carry on from there. Now I want to thank the guys on the CPC wiki forums for helping me find that poke. Specifically to Nicholas Campbell, aka Nish, for finding the 2 pokes I've used here. Thank you very much. And a couple of the people have contributed some other help for different versions and dumps of the game as well. So thank you very much, guys, for that. There was discussion whether this game is bugged or not. Like, clearly it is. Clearly it is. I wanted to get a hold of the original, the real disc of OutRun Europa and play it on my real Amstrad, just to confirm. Unfortunately, it's quite a hard game to track down. I mean, this was released by US Gold in 1991, and it didn't sell particularly well, I hear. Surprising, really. Given it's the OutRun license, but then not surprising given how awful OutRun was, and really Turbo OutRun was pretty awful as well. Turbo OutRun had some lovely music and lovely graphics, but if you actually took them away and looked at the actual gameplay, it was identical to OutRun pretty much. Nothing really had been improved apart from the graphics, and people rated, oh, Turbo OutRun's far better than the original OutRun on the Amstrad. It's the same engine, it's the same game, it's the same programmers. I may be wrong, but yeah, it's quite hard to track down OutRun Europa. I have not seen it on eBay for ages. You might be able to find it with another game US Gold released was G-Lock 360, and they bundled OutRun Europa as a free game with some copies of G-Lock, and you might find it on the other side of the disc. That did come up on eBay fairly recently, but I missed out on that auction, damn it. But there we go, that is that level completed, and even so I was running low on time there after adding in like another 20 odd seconds or so. And we're going to have to do another poke later on. But yeah, so I was using the WinApe emulator there, and using its debugger console, which you can use to put in pokes. Those of you may remember, lots of magazines back in the day used to list pokes as cheats for games, and you needed like a multi-face too, for the Amstrad at least, to put in those pokes. What an awesome bit of kit that was, and you could use it to save snapshots of games as well. Oh, I love the multi-face too. Well, you can use the same pokes in the WinApe emulator and debugger console window. Some very useful tools in WinApe actually as well, especially for finding cheats and stuff in games. What a great piece of software WinApe is. Right, we're coming to the end of this level. Again, a very tight time limit on this section of the stage. We're down to 5 seconds. We're very close though. And there we go. Just got to turn the disc over. So we're now in Italy, and we're in our Ferrari F40, which apparently the agency we work for. Remember, we're a spy called Simeon Kurtz working for the agency. Apparently they've left us our Ferrari F40. I don't know whether US Gold got permission to use the Ferrari in the game. They're a bit funny about it now. Some of the, I think there's a recent sort of OutRun conversion released, I think in 3D apparently, for, I think, was it Android or iOS devices, or on Steam? I don't quite know. I've only heard about it briefly. But they can't use the Ferrari symbol or mention it's a Ferrari F40 you're driving, which is rather unfortunate. Perhaps Ferrari are asking for lots of money for it to use the license, which is a shame and a bit stupid really, given it's free publicity for them, and not that many people are going to buy it. But hey ho. I guess it's a good job things move so fast that you don't get to really see and focus too much on how crummy the graphics at the side of the road are a bit, really. But I've already explained how they've used tiles here purposely to speed the game up, so. Yes, well, I've talked at length about lots of stuff. Now I'm kind of running out of things to talk about. So I think I'll maybe keep quiet or chime in when I feel like it and something interesting happens. Not too far from the end. And yes, this is stage 6 in Italy. And the game crashes at the end of this stage, and we're going to have to do another edit in the video and a bit of a poke as well. Although, to be honest, the poke we're going to be using is just to put in my score that I've accumulated so far, so it looks more like a climbing long play. Those police get really annoying. There's a lot more of them on this stage. They keep coming and coming. Use your turbos to get away from them. But normally you want to sort of lure them over to one side and sort of pass them on the other side. Oops. Yeah, and obviously using the turbo on bends makes it a lot harder to control, obviously. But yeah, I've been wanting to do this game for a long time, and I've often wondered over the years why no one had done a long play for the Amstrad version on YouTube yet. Well, I discovered why, because of the because of the bugs in the damn game. To be fair, the bug where it crashes at the end of this stage, we're not sure 100% if that's a problem with the dump of the game or actually is in the game. Like I say, I'd love to get hold of the actual game and use it, play it on my real Amstrad and see if it happens. I have a feeling it does. Oh look, the sky's changed colour there. got a little darker. That's a nice little touch. Obviously not as nice as when the sky changes in like burning rubber, of course. That changes to day and night and back again, which is really nice. But yeah, this is actually pretty well presented, actually very nicely presented, if a bit rough around the edges. US Gold were not known for giving their programmers a lot of time to do games, and they were often... The US Gold games were crap mostly because they were more often than not rushed with a very tight time limit. You can tell that the you know, the marketing team at US Gold ruled the roost with like, we need this game out by now so we can advertise it in time for Christmas or this period, this part of the year, blah de blah, and gave the programmers ridiculous deadlines. And you know what? I kind of work in the computing industry, and it ain't changed much. I'm having the same problems where I work with some of the developers there, and the little time they have, rush products. And what's changed? This isn't this. I mean, this is late 80s, early 90s, nearly 30 years ago, and we're still making the same mistakes. But hey ho, that's a silly rant. That's not relevant to this game. But it's funny how things don't really change. And there's plenty of rush games out there being released for modern consoles. How many modern games do you know that have come out that you've not needed to download a patch or DLC, which is just disguising, fixing more issues and bugs and stuff like that? And they're constantly happening and being released and updated, and it's not the way it should be. You should only be downloading extra content because it's extra content. You know, it adds something extra to the game, not fixing bugs. They should have been fixed in the first place. Yes, obviously they're much more complicated machines to program on, arguably. Some may argue that the Spectrum, Amstrad and Commodore was a more complicated machine to program on because you didn't have any of the tools and abstraction from the lower levels of the operating system that you do have now. Maybe I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I am really freaking tired, and I've had a glass of red wine, and I might have another. Now I think we're getting very close to the end of this stage, actually, where the crash happens. Yes, I think this is the last level of the Germany stage, stage 6. Yes, I think it's going to come up any second. Oh yes, of course, we're fighting against Porsche 911s that we were driving on one of the previous stages. Oh, very nearly got caught by the cops there. A split second later, I would have been arrested. Anywho, I think the crash is coming up here. Are you ready? Hooray! So we've got the sound still playing. We didn't get the road bump signifying the end of the level. And we try and load the next stage, and boom, crash. Oh dear. Right, so edit cut here. I fired up a cracked version of the game which had a level select on before loading, and so we've just jumped straight to stage 7. And I've used a poke again from Nish from the CPC wiki forums to poke my score in at the start of the level here. When it starts. Yeah, and if you compare a few seconds earlier, that is the same score I ended with that I'm now starting with. But look guys, I've lost all my turbos and lost all my ammo. I think there is another poke I can find and use to give me full turbos or a number of turbos, but well, I can't be bothered. And there's plenty to pick up in the game. And to be honest, I've got the hang of things. This stage wasn't too hard actually. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is, before we complete the game, is just sum up a bit of a review. Lovely colourful graphics, if very blocky and not very nice on the sides of the road. Of course, I've explained that with the tiling system they've used to get really fast gameplay, and gameplay is king. You know, you need to have a good game. Sometimes a good game can have rubbish graphics and it's still a good game. But thankfully we've got lovely colourful graphics. I find these quite acceptable. They're not the best graphics in the world, and you want to see a similar driving game done well on the Amstrad, go and look at Chase HQ every time above this game. However, it's still good. Lovely sound effects. Controls, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure of. It is really weird and hard to control. You sort of slide across in. If you push left, you're going to move across quite a way across the road each time. It's not a smooth left and right across the road like you might expect. Physics is affecting you at all times, almost, it seems. So playability, slightly iffy, and certainly not a real driving simulator. However, it ends up being quite fun, and I think because it's a little bit forgiving with, you know, you can bounce off cars and objects at the side of the road rather than just immediately explode, unless you completely career into them. And given the speed, I think there's the speed of the game, and there's like the things like the turbos you can use, which there are loads of pickups of turbos scattered throughout the road, rather than sporadically. And I think that's a clever thing to do. It might make the game a little bit easier, but the turbos doesn't really speed you up all that much, it seems. But it's fun, and I like the variety in the game where you change to a jet ski and speedboat. This is a change of cars. They've tried to put a story in the game, even though it's obviously quite rubbish, about the spy retrieving his documents. And it's a shame we don't have the final showdown against the enemy car, like in the Master System version, which was ripping off Chase HQ. But yeah, this was going to review quite relatively highly, but I'm going to have to massively knock it down for those two bugs. Not playtesting stage 5 levels 1 and 2 of that with the time limit. It's wrong, and it doesn't give you enough time. And of course the crash on stage 6, which I'm not 100% sure it's not a problem with emulation, but others have tested it and found the same thing. We need to test it on a real Amstrad, and it's very hard to get hold of a copy of this game on disc. But I have a really strong feeling that that is present as well, given that this was probably rushed. However, really nice presentation, especially like the title screens and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to mark it down again for the music, which sounds like it should have been. I don't think it's deliberately that bad. You can tell that parts of the tune work really nicely, and then suddenly it goes all wrong. So I may put that down to an emulation bug. But I did try this game in different emulators, and the same music happens. But yes, so I may have given this game like an 8.5 out of 10, but I'm going to have to mark it down quite badly for those problems. So it goes down to a 7 out of 10, and that's me being generous because of that. But otherwise, really good work from the programmer Darren White von Dazzling. But I think we're very near the end of the game now. Don't think there's any more levels after this. I do like how they've implemented the bridges and tunnels in the game though, that's really nice. But yeah, 7 out of 10 from me. Could have been a lot higher. I think this is the this is the end. And what do we get as an ending? We just get a nice ending picture. That's it. Congratulations, you have rescued the documents. We shall always be in your debt. Well, at least there's some ending. Something to thank you for. Nice picture. And then onto the high score table. So there we go, guys. Thanks for watching. This is OutRun Europa on the Amstrad CPC. It gets a 7 out of 10 from me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm glad I finally got this video done. It's been in the works for a long time, or planned at least. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care. See you soon. Goodbye.